Welcome. It is another weekend, and you know what we do on weekends. We deal on matters that are important, and trust me, this weekend is no different. This is the first weekend of the month of December, and what that tells us is that the year 2020 is gradually coming to an end, and that Christmas is around the corner. This year has been peculiar, to say the least. We've had different challenges and different experiences. But whatever our experiences are and whatever we've been through, we must be thankful for the precious gift of life. It's a gift given to us by God Almighty alone. And you know how they say it, as long as there is life, there is hope, and we must keep that hope alive. Nigeria as a nation has had our first share of challenges. Sometime in February, we had our first case of COVID-19, and since then, it's been a battle against this dreaded disease. But what is the current situation? Have we been able to flatten the curve? How are we going about our everyday life amidst the pandemic? What are the challenges? That's what our show today is all about. That's what our focus is, and that's what our discussion today will be about. It's on COVID-19 and the state of the nation. It is Weekend Deal, coming to you live from the network service of the NTA. My name is Patience Eloy Abba. Thank you for keeping a date with us.
To millions of Nigerians, the nation has moved past the worst of the coronavirus. Little wonder there is no more strict adherence to the COVID-19 protocols. However, with many countries including France, the United States and the United Kingdom now experiencing a second wave, experts are worried that the second wave is inevitable in Nigeria. So, what is the situation today in Nigeria? Are the number of cases rising or falling?
If you are following the trend in the dailies and in the NCDC website, you will agree that the cases have started rising again. The last 1 month, cases fell to a very, very comfortable level. We were very, very comfortable. But the last 3-4 weeks, now the cases have started rising. I've been infected with my family. I've been in the treatment center for 2 weeks. So this is not joke. This is real. And for me, I had a severe case of it. So for anybody to be believing or thinking that this thing is not true, it's sad.
With the festive season fast approaching, Nigerians now reckon it safe to let down their guards, as most people no longer wash their hands regularly. Face masks are almost forgotten. Mass gatherings are no longer a problem. Parties and weddings are back on the cards. There is therefore a clear chance that the different measures being put in place in the wake of the COVID-19 may amount to nothing if the transportation gaps are not quickly addressed, because transport is not an option. It is a daily necessity, and arguably 50% of the population utilizes public transport or shared taxis.
I think the most important is for everybody to take personal responsibility. Government has done policies. You know, up to now, the policy of having the right number of people in vehicles is still in place. Up to now, PTF has not removed that. So if you have taxi, you have one in front, 2 at the back. The same thing for the distance travels. We have our social mobilization and risk communication. It's a big pillar. We have organized them this festive period, and they'll be going to the motor parks to not only advise them to ensure that these things are obeyed by engaging the leaders of the parks.
The federal government says it has spent 30.5 billion naira between April and July to boost the fight against COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria for testing, isolation centers, general preparedness to surmount COVID-19 and for palliatives.
Government feeds any patient that's been isolated 3 square meters. Government buys PPEs. Government had fixed the treatment centers. There were no treatment centers. Government had to open laboratories to do the testing. And to test one person is not easy. You are aware, any passenger coming into this country have to test himself. And in Abuja, they are paying about 39,000 to do a test. Government has been testing people free all this while. I can tell you, government has really tried, despite the economic challenges.
As concerns mount among health authorities over a possible spike in COVID-19 through a second wave, over 60% of isolation centers meant to cater for coronavirus patients in the country have been shut down by state governments.
We have not shut any treatment isolation center in FCT. We reconverted Karo and Asokoro back to the normal hospital's position. But Idu, this Dedom, has combined capacity of 800. They are open and available. National Hospital is available. The DSS isolation center is available. We have patients there. So all the other isolation and treatment centers, they are in place. In fact, the Air Force has opened their own treatment and isolation center along the Upper Road at the Air Force base there. We have about 30 beds capacity. The UN has their own treatment and isolation center. It's available. So there is no treatment or isolation center that is closed.
The virus is still with us, so we cannot go back to business as usual.
PTF advised Nigerians not to travel if the journeys are not essential. I will also advise Nigerians locally, don't travel locally if you don't have to travel. You don't have to go to your hometown every year to do Christmas. This time is not normal time. Do your Christmas here. Let everybody stay and do his or her own Christmas where they are, except if you have to travel.
Therefore, our focus on Weekend Deal today is on the state of COVID-19 in Nigeria. How far, so far.
Well done, Francis. That was in-depth. How far, so far? The truth is, COVID-19 is real and the fight is collective. We must do it together. We must not be in denial. A lot of people are saying that the virus has gone. It's not. It's still here. And we must fight it. And like we said at the beginning of the program, we had our first case sometime in February. And since then, the fight has been on. But NTA Abuja has put together this report, this feature on the very beginning. Let's watch together and then we can talk.
The first COVID-19 case was confirmed in Lagos State on the 27th of February 2020. This index case was a 44-year-old male Italian citizen.
27th of February, we had an Italian came into the country on his way to Ogun State. It was discovered that after being quarantined, he had so the government must be giving the kudos at that point because after discovering that he had the virus, they swung into action, initiated a contact tracing, and of course about 39 of the staff, including 4 workers, health workers that had contact with him, were quarantined. And it was so fortunate for the country that on the 10th, I think 10th of March, the second case was discovered. And it was a contact from the index case. The government of Lagos State and the federal government collaborated with NCDC, went into tracing of everybody on board. And before you know it, they were able to curtail the spread of that initial, the index case. It's still prevailing in some states. Presently, we are on a research in Benue State, and I can tell you there are rising cases in some of the states. Lagos still maintaining the highest, with Abuja, and then states like Port Harcourt.
It was as if it's not going to escalate the way we saw it. So, to a point, the Presidential Committee on COVID-19 was able to put up measures in place, and we are able to take some prompt action, even when a whole lot of people did not believe that it's going to escalate or it's going to consume lives the way it's actually did, but not up to the level it is in the Western world. I think they did a very good thing, a very good job by spreading the awareness, taking the necessary actions by implementing the lockdown, the interstate lockdown. But because of those procedures, the safety rules and regulations that were put in place, and implementing it, even when people are crying that they are dying of hunger and all that, but the president keeps saying, we have to, ensure that our safety first. Because the truth is that you have to be alive to work.
On the 1st of December 2020, 281 new confirmed cases and 3 deaths were recorded in Nigeria, having carried out a total daily test of 7,101 samples across the country. This notwithstanding, the Nigerian government has taken numerous health, social and economic measures to cushion the impact of COVID-19.
The first phase of the lockdown was total, and only journalists and some few health workers and they were allowed to go. So that, I think, was one of the first things that was able to check the spread. After the first phase of the lockdown, there was another lockdown again. And then another thing was, even when they want to reopen the economy, they were reopening it in phases.
I think the best anyone can do now is to believe the reality and to push towards the prevention measures put in place by NCDC and by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 as regards to various sectors of the economy. But I think the government did their best through relevant stakeholders and even individuals who contributed.
While these measures will not single-handedly contain the virus, it will encourage the citizenry on the battle so far.
Indeed, the COVID, it's amazing to know that for the index case in February, we have we've confirmed over 60,000 cases already. That just to tell us that if we don't fight this dreadful virus, it will fight us. But the aim is for us to win this fight. The report was put together by Ore, and that was a very good one. Well done. Okay, we are going to be moving on quickly. One of the crucial against the fight for COVID-19 is testing. How much of testing are we doing in Nigeria? How accurate are our results? And how early do we even get the results when they come? NTA Victoria Island Lagos have put together another feature on this. Let's see it.
With the latest figures on COVID-19 released by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, it shows that there's an increase in the spread of novel coronavirus disease in the country, with a total cases of 68,303, recovered cases 64,291, deaths recorded 1,179 as at Friday, 4th December 2020 by the NCDC. These figures reveal the state of COVID-19 in the nation.
We have been effectively managing COVID-19 patients as a treatment center since May in the state. But prior to that, we were holding area. And when one compares the situation now to what it was when we started, the period was in the month of July. July was particularly very challenging. And then over September, there was a gradual decline, October and then November. We're not surprised at the figures that are recorded daily now and posted by NCDC. About half of what it used to be.
A visit to the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, which also has a testing center, revealed that there has been recent increase in testing and there is no scarcity of testing kits whatsoever.
Government has been providing test kits since the beginning of this. Number of laboratories has also gone up, and I'm not sure there is any of those laboratories that has complained of not having test kits. I think the complaint is more of people not coming up for tests. So that is the area I believe we need to work on. And locally, we have also developed 2 test kits. One can come up with results in less than 40 minutes. The other one we are yet to launch. We launch in the next 2 weeks. And that works with the conventional PCR method. So it's going to make test kits available, at least locally, for anyone who has the PCR and the molecular laboratory that can use the test kits.
Having identified the importance of testing and how it directly affects and influences the numbers of patients, treatment, recovery, and fatalities, we sought the views of medical experts handling COVID-19 patients.
When you test and the result is positive, we reach out to them. For many of them who come and are tested, they usually get their documentation, and each of them has an EPIC number with which you identify the person. And remains that one number for him, as no matter how many times you have to test. Now, when we test, if it's positive and the patient is asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic, we reach out, invite, or actually go to mobilize the patient to come to the hospital.
People can get tested easily. I mean, once they want to get tests, that is the most important thing. But because I'm not aware that we have scarcity of test kits right now. Even with the one we are adding on, it's to make tests readily available. I think the only areas where we can talk about inadequacy of tests are hard to reach areas.
However, it is pertinent that Nigerians should adhere strictly to the safety guidelines of the PTF to avoid a second wave of new infection of COVID-19 in the country, as well as go for testing if experiencing symptoms of the disease.
The fight is on and we must not be in denial. One of the things that we must do while we are fighting is to be accountable. We must take responsibility for our own health, for the people we love, and just the person next to you. We must be accountable and act responsibly. During the course of the week, Elizabeth caught up with Dr. Sani Aliu, and they had this discussion. Let's watch it.
I really find it surprising that people would argue that COVID-19 does not exist. I think it's a huge disservice. It's actually insensitive to those who have lost loved ones to the virus. I mean, if you look globally as well as in Nigeria alone, we have well over 1,000 people who have died from COVID. Some of whom have been very close to, and some of whom have been actually personal loss to some of us. So to say that COVID does not exist, it's like you're really saying that millions of people who have had COVID are lying. That cannot be right. And nobody would create a pandemic for whatever reason, because a pandemic can consume yourself personally. So my pushback really is those that are arguing that COVID does not exist, they are putting their loved ones at risk, particularly those that are vulnerable. Yes, it's not behaving like a normal pandemic. We're not seeing dead people on the streets, which is a good thing. We're not seeing people bleeding to death. So you don't really have that fear factor that you see with Ebola or Lassa, etc. But nevertheless, it still kills.
Recently, we have seen the number of cases on a daily basis dropped. Today I think we have about 143. Could it be that we're not testing enough? I mean, we're circulating more now.
We're definitely not testing enough. And part of the problem with testing nowadays is that people are not keen to come out and test. Even those that know that they have symptoms, respiratory symptoms, for instance, or a fever, do not come out to test. It's no longer an issue of the lack of availability of testing centers or access to testing, because we now every state has a molecular laboratory for testing, and the testing is free, except for travelers. Only travelers pay for testing. Otherwise, if it's a public health related issue, if you're sick, you should not pay. You should not be charged for testing, and we make sure of that because we still provide the laboratory kits through NCDC.
What hurdles have you experienced, the Presidential Task Force has experienced with the level of compliance on this level COVID-19?
This coming week, the PTF will be looking at some of the restriction measures that we have relaxed as well, and we'll also be publicizing and informing the public, reminding the public of those rules that are still there. So, for instance, wearing of face masks. We will enforce the wearing of face masks, especially in official buildings, etc. We've already asked the head of service to release another circular, and this time around, it will be the responsibility of the permanent secretaries and the heads of these agencies to make sure that every staff member is wearing a face mask, because our primary responsibility is to protect the public, but especially those that work for us. In terms of mass gatherings, we'll also be issuing additional advisories. Mass gatherings beyond 50, unless it's in a workplace, is still restricted. We have not relaxed this, whether it's in places of worship or whether it's to do with weddings, etc. People are not allowed to gather in huge numbers and completely disregard the physical distancing rules or the wearing of face masks.
Somebody once actually wrote to us complaining that one of the reasons why he has refused to go for further testing is because the ones he's done in the past, he doesn't know if he's negative or positive. Some people actually say the results don't get to them after testing, so they get discouraged going the second time.
Actually, NCDC do provide an electronic service where results can be texted to you or emailed to you. And certainly, if it's positive, no news is always good news. If it's positive, they will definitely reach out to you. But if you don't hear anything, you can still reach out. It's just like with the travel portal. We now have customer support center, so you can call for your result. Even for non-travel related purposes, ideally you're supposed to be informed. But the priority, because of the number of negatives we get compared to the positive, the priority is to inform those that are positive, because they're the ones that we need to do something about. We need to isolate. I would be very surprised if any positive is being missed, because they are prioritized. As you said, 140 positives in the entire country. It's not going to be difficult to reach out to 140, but it will be more difficult to reach out to, let's say, we test on average about 4,000 to 5,000 a day. It will be more difficult to reach out to each and every one of the 4,000 persons that we've tested.
What is the state of COVID in Nigeria? Are we in the first phase? Are we heading towards second? Because the numbers just keep rising or falling. We really don't know what is the case
we
in
talk
Nigeria.
about first wave, second wave. With Nigeria, we're still bumbling along with the first wave. We haven't even finished the first wave, talk less of going to a second wave. But hopefully we will not have a second wave, especially if we continue to follow those simple instructions that we've always given in terms of non-pharmaceutical interventions. People talk to me about the vaccine and they are excited, etc. And I say to them, you already have a form of vaccine. If you use sanitizers, you wash your hands, you avoid touching your face, you use a face mask, avoid mass gatherings, etc. That's a vaccine, and it's probably going to be as effective as any jab you have. And remember, even when a vaccine comes in, it's not going to be given to everybody. We will give it to healthcare workers and we'll give it to the vulnerable. But the majority of people will not have it. We're looking at an estimated maybe 44 million Nigerians getting it, but that would take more than a year to give it to 44 million people. And in any case, it's going to be quite expensive for government. So we'll have to partner with our donor agencies, etc. So don't rely on the vaccine, certainly not yet. Do those simple measures and make sure that you're protected.
People now feel that they don't need to maintain social distancing. We see a lot of events happening we see a lot of weddings and ceremonies taking place.
We are going into a holiday season. And the message we're sending out for the holiday season is that there will be other holidays if you survive this one. There will be other Christmases. If you are outside the country, stay outside the country. Don't travel unless it's essential. If you are in Nigeria, stay in Nigeria during this season. Do not travel unless it's essential. If you travel and things change, we may close the airports and you could get stranded.
Exactly.
So yeah, in actual fact, it's not in your interest to travel unless it's essential, because we will continue to monitor the figures from outside the country. Some of the things that we have put in place, like the travel portal we have, is now working quite well. We have sample collection centers in virtually every state for travelers that come in. Yes, travelers have to charge because travel is a personal pursuit. Government cannot afford it because of the number of travelers. We get up to 7,000 passengers when we fully open the airports. But the message is, unless you have to travel, please stay put. Zoom in for Christmas if you have to talk to family members, etc. There will be other Christmases, but survive this one first.
Whether we like it or not, COVID-19 is real. Please continue to wash your hands. Don't go out without your face mask. And please keep social distancing. And if you want to have an event, you must keep to all the protocols so that we can be safe. Together, we can make it. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Now, let's go to NTA Uyo, where we'll be taking a look at the role of transportation as far as the fight against COVID-19 is concerned.
The end of 2019 was not particularly interesting around the world because of the outbreak of COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus, a disease that affects the respiratory system and severe in people who are 60 years and above and those with terminal diseases. And due to its apparent danger and devastating consequences in global health, the World Health Organization, WHO, declared COVID-19 a pandemic, resulting in total lockdown in almost all countries in the first quarter of this year in order to curb the spread of the virus. With the restriction of movement and total lockdown, all aspects of the economy, including the transportation sector, was affected.
Really affected us tremendously in terms of movement. Not until the government came up with preventive measures like aids on how we can go through the COVID pandemic.
Having this in mind, how has the transportation sector contributed in flattening the curve or raising the number of COVID-19 cases?
They come up with the issue of nose masks, which we have been using, and the sitting arrangement in terms of the bus. When for the traveling passengers, how they sit, we made sure that people don't come close.
The rules and regulations of the federal government who asks us to keep social distance. We convene two people per a row of a seat, which normally we do convene 3 on a seat. There are some seats that we convene 4.
Since the transportation sector is a service-orienting sector, there is no doubt that there is an interplay of many people, such as the managers, workers, commuters, and hawkers, who interact in close proximity on a daily basis in the course of their job and movement. What are the modalities put in place by these companies to ensure the safety of everyone?
We were told not to use AC, and that has been our procedures ever since we were given that instruction. Even the road safety came in and we were lectured on how the drivers and passengers can relate together. And we made sure that hand sanitizers are being provided in each of the vehicles. So that has been the preventive measures, and that has been going on for a period of time now.
If you don't put on your face mask, we don't allow you to board our vehicle. And that single passenger we convene in the front is according to the rules they give to us, so that we will not extend to the next person, so that distance will be there.
How does the commuters or passengers protect themselves against COVID-19 infection?
This terminal has really tried very well because we are observing social distance. we're sitting 2-2 in a seat now. Fare now is now being doubled. Like for instance, Lagos that we knew was 6,000 naira, now it's 11,000 naira. Same as Abuja, now it's 13,000 naira and 11,000 naira. Owerri, for instance, was 1,600 naira, but now it's 2,500 naira because of the social distancing.
As we traverse across the length and breadth of Nigeria through the different means of transportation, let us be alive and responsible to the realities of COVID-19 and adhere strictly to the stipulated guidelines by the government in order to flatten the curve, especially as the festive period associated with a lot of movement is approaching.
Welcome back. The fight against COVID is, like I always put it, it's all for one and all. Well, it's all for one and one for all. We must fight it together in order to flatten the curve and ultimately make it go away. Joining the conversation is a member of the House of Representatives and is the committee chairman for health. I'm talking about Honorable Yusuf Sunanu. Sir, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so tell us, what is the situation with COVID in Nigeria right now? What is the situation?
Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important program. And your question is apt. What is the condition of COVID now in Nigeria? Well, one can confidently say that as of today, the curve for the transmission of COVID is flattened. But that is not the end of the story. Now, what is most is to maintain that curve flattening in the country. And this is where it is very difficult. And it requires a lot of discipline.
Okay. When you talk about maintenance of flattening the curve, what exactly are you talking about? What should we do? Because Nigerians listening to you say, okay, it's talking about maintenance. Yes. We flatten the curve. How do we maintain it?
The things to do to maintain it is to look at what have we been doing that made us to flatten the curve, and then create the necessary discipline for us to maintain such discipline to continue with what we are doing before.
Okay. But do you think people are experiencing fatigue? People are tired of doing it. What's the problem?
To that.
Okay.
So what we have done earlier is to ensure that we have created the necessary information, the necessary awareness, and call for necessary cooperation of people to work along with the government, so that we can reduce the rate of transmission. And also we awaken the government to ensure that it invests the little resources that we have to fight the spread of the disease. And also, what we are a bit late behind, and of which we are also working to see, how we can incorporate much of research to what we have been doing to ensure that we try to identify those silence issues that made us to achieve what we have achieved. For example, when COVID came in,
yes,
everybody rose up that we don't have ventilators, no ventilators, no ventilators, no ventilators. And by that, as if we create treatment of COVID with availability of ventilators.
Okay.
Now, over time, the practitioners realized that among our patients that suffered and recovered from COVID, very few needed to be under ventilator, unlike the other world. So you can see now, if we cooperate with this knowledge we have, now we have a better way of saying, look, we need to channel resources. Those things that we have done, we have adopted the social distancing, we have adopted hand washing and use of sanitizer.
Okay.
Also, we have channeled a lot of resources to ensure that we have upgraded facilities that will ensure that what we have put in, for example, when it came up, we only have 2 laboratories.
Okay.
As of today, we have more than 70 laboratories that can actually
all over the country.
Yes,
okay.
that can listen.
Okay.
And as I knew, in the amended budget of 2020, there is also a provision of large sum of money that each and every 54 tertiary health institutions in the country will have the capacity to diagnose using their molecular laboratory upgrade COVID in the country. These are all positive.
Okay.
Now, what are we supposed to do now? We all know that definitely there is fatigue, as you mentioned. This fatigue, we have healthcare fatigue, we have community fatigue, we also have governmental fatigue, you can see. Because The COVID has brought a lot of challenges. So, but the issue is that we have consolation that little we have put has really tried to move us to where we are now.
Getting results.
So if we can sustain that,
okay,
at least we ensure that not only flattening the curve, but also eradication of the disease. But let's see. There are other areas we can judge whether we are getting it right or wrong.
Okay.
People going out of the country, they must be able to test themselves before going out of the country. Now, when you look at the data, what is the percentage? It's still very insignificant of people who are intending to go out of the country and subjected to the test and now coming out to be positive. Unlike when we are at the peak of the COVID. So that has significantly reduced.
Okay.
The number of admissions into our centers has also reduced. We have seen a situation prior to now that people are extremely in extremely difficult condition, having breathing difficulties, that they have to be rushed to the hospital. And a lot of them will tell you that yes. And even those with comorbidities that are now coming, the severity of disease also happen to be less. And there's no way country can develop without research.
Okay.
The government must change its focus.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable. Let's go to NTA Mina. They have put together this picture on what happened once the lockdown was lifted, when we started, the churches and the mosques started gathering together again. They have done a good job on this. Let's watch it together.
The first case of coronavirus in Nigeria was recorded in February 2020 in Lagos and gradually spread across the country. To control the spread, Niger State government took a proactive measures as one of the first states in the country to effect a total lockdown.
Of course, the lockdown, was to ensure, like I said, people don't come out, mix among themselves, and then those who are carrying the virus, will have facilitated the spread. And of course, those lockdowns affected not only people in their households, but places of businesses, like markets, motor parks, and other, festivities, were also restricted, just in compliance with those protocols. But of course, people were sensitized, to continue to provide sanitation around themselves. And today, we have seen, a gradual, ease off, of these measures.
In compliance with the coronavirus guidelines,
despite the ease of lockdown, I still put on my face mask because coronavirus is real. I don't want to die young.
Despite government effort in sensitizing the public to take precaution, few people still believe that COVID-19 is not real. In conclusion, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. Coronavirus is real, deadly, and infectious. Let's be healthy conscious, because health is precious.
Thank you so much, NTA Mina. That was a good insight. Sir, you see what NTA Mina had just done? They said that once the lockdown was lifted, there was a spike in cases. Do you think the lockdown was lifted too early in Nigeria?
When you look at the average Nigerian situation, we are in a country whereby I have to go out, or a lot of us have to go out and work for that day to get what they will eat tomorrow.
The informal sector.
Now, that's an issue. Now the government is made with two options. Lifting the lockdown, and then maybe probably have the risk of increased transmission and reporting of cases, or leaving people indoors that we cannot sustain their daily feeds, and that they now moving towards developing malnutrition because they cannot feed well. They cannot go out and bring it. You understand?
Yes.
And that once you are malnourished, you may also be predisposed also getting
the COVID.
The COVID.
Yes.
So the government has to take the risk. Life is about taking the risk. Now the surge was just a little distant, but thereafter, the flattening of the curve returned back to where it was. You understand? Okay. So that's this thing. The government must be able to balance the situation. Even if you look at Europe now, in most countries, even in America, some states could not go for lockdown because how it adversely affects the
economy.
And even now, if you go in Europe, 6 out of 10 people, I think, if I can recall the data, I saw just last week, they're in food crisis now.
But even if we were to have a second wave in Nigeria, there will be no lockdown, basically. We will be able to manage ourselves.
No, I will say, but I don't pray for us to have
a second wave.
But you see, is what I'm saying is we must be able to learn from others.
Yes.
And then learn from our own
situations. Yes.
You see, even in medicine, if you say you are going to apply 100% what America is applying to your own local condition here, you may find it wrong. If you apply what you can apply in Akwa Ibom State, for example, to what you are going to do in Katsina State, it won't work. You understand? Because we have a lot of socio-cultural, religious differences that you must learn to accommodate them so as to carry people along. Okay. Otherwise, people will report. If you keep people locked down for 2-3 weeks, definitely people will report. And we're also lucky that we have a presidential task force that keep on monitoring the situation. As it is going, it is easing the lockdown. As it's the impact, negative impact of the lockdown. As we are going, they are easing it. They're easing it. It wasn't a sudden. It was a gradual.
It was gradual.
And even now we are seeing another phase.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Okay. The word. I mean, it's sharing news that our curve is flattened. That's what we've been praying for, but the world is moving towards vaccines now. Is there any hope of any vaccine coming from Nigeria? And Nigerians looking towards also having a vaccine. Just like you said, we should have a vaccine that is for Nigerians because our situation is different. Any hope of vaccines coming from our own country here that will cater for us?
Actually, if you say any hope now, I will neither say yes, no.
Okay.
For certain reasons. Okay. For you to produce an internationally acceptable vaccines, there are procedures. One, your regulatory body must reach an international standard. And what is the regulatory body here? It's our NAFDAC. You understand? The NAFDAC must reach at least level 3. Our NAFDAC is still at level 2.
Why,
of global benchmark.
Can you please explain that? Because I am interested in that. Why are we not in level 3? What is the problem?
Level 3 because of the previously not much was invested.
Okay.
And now we have a guideline that specify what we need to be at level 3. And I assure you that the National Assembly and the Executive are working. In the next few months to come, NAFDAC could be in
level
3 global benchmarking of international standard.
Okay.
And that will give the ability for the WHO to tell, look, that the NAFDAC, we are safe in your hands to supervise production of local vaccine in your country. And then we'll get that and the vaccine become acceptable all over. And that's what we are working. And when we achieve that, I will also not, I also have to say that currently we have done a lot of lessons. There are ongoing collaboration between sister institutions to see how we can develop a vaccine. And if you look at, currently there is an understanding and close working relationship between Usman Danfodiyo University, Sokoto, and National Nigeria Institute of Medical Research to produce a vaccine, starting from Lassa fever and Royce. And as today, as at the last discussion, I know they have a candidate vaccine. A candidate vaccine is not a vaccine that you say, look, it's something that you say, look, this thing, if I'm to follow it closely, I may end up with an outcome that will be favorable to me. 5, 10 years back, we have not thought of that. And also, if you look at it, also locally, the Ministry of Health also have an agreement with a company that will also work towards producing local vaccine. And I'm sure just last 2 months back, the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, was concretized to ensure that things work normal. What are we saying here is that the COVID has made us to awaken, to know that, look, we cannot rely on any distance. The worst you can do is to handle your health care or your country's security to a foreigner. Once he decides to go, you are open. And that's why I always call for improved domestic source of finance, of healthcare finance, healthcare services.
I have a concern with this vaccine. You just told us that, I mean, we are all looking at it. There are no researches out yet, but it seems as though we have our own genetic disposition that is helping us. We're just thinking, fight this COVID. Do you think a vaccine that is good for the Americans or the Europeans will be good for us? Do you think it would work the same way? Because I think, I don't know, I'm just thinking, because the COVID is behaving differently here, as it's behaving differently in the US and other countries. Do you think we can use the same vaccine as a people?
This is what I'm saying, that we needed to go into research and find all the nitty-gritties of those.
Very important.
But it's still same, you can say if it works there, nothing will also stop it from working here. But let's just understand one thing. While I agree that the aim thing is vaccine, but vaccine is not the ultimate solution. You still need curative services for those. Vaccine cannot say, doesn't mean that if you are vaccinated, you cannot develop disease.
I want to know about that. How? I thought when you're vaccinated...
No. Vaccine will only prevent, or if one acquire, lessen the severity. But it's not a curative. If somebody is currently having coronavirus in his body, and you say that you are giving him vaccine so that he can get cured, that's not. Vaccine, what is vaccine? It's just in a layman's language for people to understand. It's just using a substance that shares features of the virus that is causing disease. You now challenge the body through giving that substances so that the body now can ultimately go and produce antibody. And that antibody will now remain as first line of defense. If eventually a person gets the virus in his body, those preformed antibody that were there in his body will now quickly attack it before he develops the disease. And even if he develops disease, the severity will be less.
I want you to talk to Nigerians. A lot of people believe that there's no COVID anymore. People have, like we said, fatigue in keeping to the rules and all that. So I want you to tell them and speak to Nigerians on keeping to the guidelines and making sure they are safe.
Well, I think it's one common thing that we used to say in HIV. It's also about COVID. Either you are infected or you are affected. And we are still in that statement. COVID is a reality. It came. It's still with us. We are succeeding in reducing the impact of COVID as far as the transmission is concerned. But the global economy and local effect on economy still remain. So if we cannot sell our crude oil outside, we can import with difficulty. Our economy is crashing. And when you look at the global analysis, all are the impact of
COVID-19.
It's enough to tell us that the COVID exists in the world. And the fact that we still have some people being admitted in our isolation center and are coming to, even if it's a single person, we still believe COVID is still with us. And I believe COVID is still with us, but I also have the belief that we overcome it. And the only way we do is to ensure that while we are in a fatigue, we try as much as possible to have respect for our life, to play safe, so that we can, as much as possible, imbibe and continue to replicate the attitude and culture that we have developed during the peak of COVID. That will help in lessening the spread, and it will also help in breaking the chain of transmission. And then once very few people have it and they are isolated, we may end up eliminating the virus.
Completely.
That's our hope.
Oh, thank you so much, Honorable. Thank you for your time. We've been speaking with Honorable Yusuf Sununu, and he has told us what we should do as Nigerians. And he has said COVID is real, and we must take care of ourselves. And I keep saying it's a collective fight. We must fight it together. Thank you so much once again, Honorable. We will go on a short break. The deal continues. Okay, so our feedback lines are on air. So let's hear from you what your thoughts are, what your questions are. I want to hear from you. But I will take two messages now. The first one says, good morning. I am worried. We are not observing COVID-19 preventing measures as stipulated. I am Galaxy from Makadi. Galaxy, I think we should all try to talk to our friends and relatives, because if I talk to my circle of influence and you talk to your circle of influence, definitely there will be a change. We must not let down our guards. The virus is indeed not something we can toil with. Then this message is from Ahmad in Wakari. He said, Dr. Aliu, it seems in Taraba we don't have any form of information sensitization unit on COVID. What is happening? Well, there's a lot of information out there. You can go on the internet, on television. I'm sure whatever information you want, you will get. Let us keep together by making sure that we get the right information from the internet or from the television and keep safe. Now, a little away from COVID-19, we'll be taking a look at a feature on the International Day for Disability.
The International Day of Persons with Disabilities is annually observed on the 3rd of December to promote the full and equal participation of persons with disabilities and to take action for their inclusion in all aspects of society and development.
People living with disability still encounter architectural, attitudinal and technological barriers when exercising their voting rights. No sign language interpreter, no braille or sign ramps. There are inaccessible voting machines.
The theme for this year's International Day of Persons with Disabilities is Building Back Better toward a disability-inclusive, accessible, and sustainable post-COVID-19 world.
We have to build back better and put it into constitution. Inclusion of persons with disability in everything that the government is planning, so that we feel a sense of belonging.
Building back better means that as government is beginning to think of intervention post-COVID-19, in your local government, in your community, what is your contribution to see that we are at the decision-making table?
With James Lalu at the helm, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities organized an event, indeed, a first of its kind. The Executive Secretary, on behalf of the disability community, commended the federal government for the passage of disability laws and the establishment of the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, and nomination of members of the board of the commission.
Truly, we want to build back Nigeria better. It is something that now relies on the shoulders of the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities to see that all these challenges are being minimized to the barest minimum. The issue of accessibility challenges is a multi-billion naira intervention that needs to be done.
On behalf of the minister and on behalf of the ministry, we wish you so well. And we support all you are doing. We will so support all you are doing to ensure that issues of persons with disability is mainstream to all sectors of development.
There was lots to eat and drink. Also, people with disabilities were given the opportunity to display their God-given talents.
My people show me love, even from above. See me going higher, and the road higher. God, I'm not higher. This is my heart desire. the mission, even with the contractions of station. Oh no.
I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, cause here I come. And marching out to the beat I drum.
Many describe the event as a welcome development, which will give confidence and encouragement to people with disabilities and provide a platform to network and share ideas for monumental growth in many fields of endeavor.
Thank you, Kachi, for that report. Indeed, there is ability in disability. We must not relent. As Nigerians, we must continue to do the right thing, like I'm doing right now. We must not allow fatigue to set in. We'll continue to sanitize, continue to keep safe, and continue to do the right thing as far as all these are concerned. Today's show, we have taken a look at how it all started. From one index case, we have over 60,000 confirmed cases. Transportation, how it has affected us. While we move from point A to point B, we must keep safe. And then, of course, social gathering. Whether we like it or not, we will have a need to gather socially to celebrate or even to mourn, for example. And we must do it keeping to the protocols. Keeping safe is important. We must do it together. We must, again, I emphasize, please, we must not allow fatigue to set in. We must together collectively fight this dreadful disease and make it go away. Ultimately, that is the aim. Yes, we heard today that we flatten the curve, but the aim is to ultimately make it go away. We'll be here tomorrow again, bright and early. God bless you, and God continue to bless Nigeria. Goodbye.